And hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to this very special live stream panel discussion that we're doing today. We have a very special guest. Before we get into that, my name is Yoko Koguchi. I'm a filmmaker in New York City, and these guys are my crew members that I work with in New York City to do films with. This is Michael, Edwin, Shaq, and Nadim. You guys can say hello.
Hello.
Just a very brief intro before we get started. Do one of you guys want to just briefly talk about like what we do as independent filmmakers in New York City, just very quickly?
Sure. Yeah, we try to make short films, a few features on relatively small budgets. We are very interested in visual artistry and trying to tell the best stories that we can. And we've worked with some wonderful crew people, some wonderful actors. We have a feature that's in post-production right now. We're very excited about finishing for the next upcoming year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. And without further ado, we have a very special guest today. His name is Ryotaro Kogushi. He is a Tokusatsu special effects assistant director who I met on Shin Godzilla back in 2015. And he'd like to say hello. Kogushi-san, introduction どうぞ.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, guys. Thank you for the opportunity to have this streaming live for Yoko and your team. First, I will introduce you my career. My name is Ryotaro Kogu, live in Tokyo. I'm an assistant director, VFX supervisor, and sometimes as a director. My first work was person of SFX miniature department. Then a few years ago, I became an assistant SFX director of, Power Rangers, the original series in Japan. You know Power Rangers?
Yeah.
Okay. In 2015, I met Yoko as Shin Godzilla's SFX crew. He was a person of progress department. He worked harder. Yeah, it's real. He worked harder and he was a nice guy.
Thank you.
Okay. But he looks like so much fun and excited to meet Shin Godzilla the animatronics.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, he helped us horror filming. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.
After that, I worked in Shin Evangelion, Shin Ultraman. Now I'm working in Shin Kamen Rider VFX department. Sometimes I want to work in foreign filming environment, and I wanna emigrate another country with my family when if you can. Thank you. That's all. My preparation. That's all my preparation in English.
No, thank you very much. That was amazing. That was great.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
Yes. We understand. Thank you. We actually have 質問があるんですけど、we have a question here from Titan Goji. Hello, Davis. Which Super Sentai show did you work on? どっちのスーパー戦隊番組やったんですか？
どっちっていうかどれ？
はい。
I started my career in 2007. 2007. This was Geki Ranger. Maybe US called Power Ranger Jungle Fury.
Oh wow.
Oh, Jungle Fury.
Maybe 15 or 16 years ago.
Did you watch that show as a kid, Shaq?
Yeah, definitely. I was a big Power Ranger fan from like Mighty Morphin all the way to Jungle. I think Jungle Fury is actually the last series I watched.
Oh, I forgot that. And I am an SFX crew. My work is shooting Megazord or
Oh,
part of Megazord, super mechanic, and transformation sequence. This is sometimes miniature, sometimes CGI. I work in whole of SFX scenes.
Oh wow, thank you.
that's great. So I'm going to kick things off with a question, and you guys, after this, feel free to ask as many questions as we want, as we have a great guest here. ポミさん、ここから質問が始まるんですけど、最初僕から質問を聞きますけど、ポミさんはどうやってこの特撮の世界に入ったんですか？ The question is, how did Kogushi enter the Tokusatsu world?
Should I answer in English?
どっちでも。
Both okay?
いや。
じゃあちょっと日本語で、よく聞いといてね。
はい。
大学の時に、フィルムで怪獣とか特撮の短いショートムービーを作りました。
はい。
うん。よく見たことあるよね。
はい。
うん。この前チェスターにも送ったけど。
はい。In college, he was making giant monster kaiju short films in college, and that's sort of an origin. どうぞ。
Okay, and I'll show you later.
Yes.
で、それを、日本のテレビ番組に、応募、アプライしたわけですね。で、その時が、ゲストが樋口監督でした。
ああ、なるほど。
で、その特撮の特集だった。SFX の、まあそういう回だったのね。
はい。
で、それでテレビで紹介されて、ちょっとだけね、ほんとちょっとだけ。それでその後、そのテレビ番組を今の僕がいる会社の一番偉い人が見てて、それでコネクションができた感じ。それで次の年に、見学って英語でなんて言うの見に行くだけ。
はい。
で、見学にね、年末に行って、普通見学って1日とか2日で終わるじゃん。
はい。
大体ね。でも、陽子みたいに見学なのに1ヶ月いたの。
はい。
ずーっといたの。そしたら、名前覚えられて、で、その数ヶ月後に、その時大阪にいたけど、東京に引っ越したら電話もらって、そしたらもう次の週から働くことになった。最初はミニチュアのデパートメントだったけどね。
はい。
どうぞ、You can translate.
Yes. So after college, he, in college, he was making these kaiju tokusatsu short films, and soon after college, he applied to be part of a staff member in a TV program, and that's where he met director Shinji Higuchi, who will, famously later on co-direct Shin Godzilla, and now is directing Shin Ultraman. And then from there, their relationship began to blossom from there. The TV program was a very short-lived sort of opportunity, but and then for the next project, he was only there. He was only supposed to be there for a short amount of time, but then he ended up being there for about a month, and from then on, he got more constant work through those connections, and that's where he sort of began.
Yeah, I have a kind of a follow-up question to that, I guess, which is when he was making the kaiju films in college, what sort of attracted him to that genre in particular?
大学でその怪獣特撮映画を作ってる時にそのインスピレーションがどっから来たんですか？
なんかね、学生の時はあんまりそういうのをね、なんかちゃんと考えなかった気がするけど、なんかこう好きなものだけを撮ってたから。でも、まあ、 ね、昔からウルトラマンも好きだったし、多分陽光だったら知ってると思うけど、リターンオブウルトラマン知ってる、
はい。はい。
あれが、まあ、安野さんもそうだけど、僕も大好きだから、やっぱり、ああいう、なんかちょっとこう、ちゃんとしたスーパーヒーローのムービーじゃなくて、ちょっと、なんか最後の結末が、ラストがちょっとダークな感じ
はい。そうですね。
にしたかったし、あと、当時まだ、iPhone もなかったから、
はい。
iPhone もないし、HD のカメラもなかったから、ビデオっていうとね、もうテープのビデオしかなかった、昔。
そうですよね。はい。
そう。で、それは、ハイスピードシューティングができなかったから、
はい。
でどうしてもハイスピードがやりたくて、8mm フィルム、富士フィルムの 8mm で、シングルレートでやってましたね。
はい。
でも、インスピレーションはやっぱりその、ね、昔のウルトラマンからが好きだったし、まあ、それをやってみたいっていうのがあったかもしれない。
So basically, when he was in college, he didn't really think about it too hard, but then he was always a fan of the Ultraman TV show, specifically Return of Ultraman, which also is a show that Anno famously also loved very much. That's the third Ultraman series, and he liked that there was more of a darker essence to that superhero as opposed to some of the other properties that were coming out at the time. And when he was in college, he wanted to do something like that. And back then when you were a up and coming filmmaker, you don't have a lot of the funds, or it wasn't possible to get a high frame rate camera. And those old tokusatsu movies, you have to shoot them at a high frame rate to then slow them down to give them that sense of weight and scale. And he couldn't do that, so he just got a Super 8 camera and filmed it on that during his college days.
Okay, Evans, I will send you that film.
Yes, I also have a copy of his film that he made in college. It's amazing. It's actually really really great. It's I can't understate it enough.
And you didn't preload it for the stream? Come on, yo.
I have it. I just don't. I have it. I just
I wasn't gonna say that. I was thinking that, but
Yeah, I third that notion.
well, we'd love to see it. I mean, you know.
どうやって見せた方がいいんですかね、そのショート。
多分送って見せる分にはいいんだけど、こ
こでも見せれないですよね。
多分ね、ウルトラマンの BGM を使ってるから。
はいはい。
だから、ウィザ BGM だったら大丈夫かな。わかんないけど、でも今はね、あんまりないな。
僕持ってるけど。
だからそれをみんなに送ってもいいよ。ただ、ストリーミングでは見れないから、見せられないと思う。
そう、OK. There's some copyright issues there, so it might not be the best way to show it. But
でもね、これはね、できれば一人で見てほしいって言っといて。
Also, he said that he prefers that each of us sees it alone and sort of form their opinion, kind of just watch it, you know. That was a good question, Michael. Thank you. Titan Goji also shout out Return of Ultraman. Yes, that is a great show. Hi Henson John. That is also there's something about the filmmaking in that show that's just really palpable and it's really great. Do you guys have any follow-up questions after Michael? Nadim, you're muted.
Not at the moment on my end that I can think of, but
there's a lot of great questions in the chat. I mean, there's a difference.
Yeah, let me ask actually.
Filming series and movies is a good question.
So, Kogushi-san, 特撮シリーズと特撮映画の撮影する違いが何ですか？
What different TV show or movie?
そう。これどう違うか。
あんまり違わないけど。でもテレビは TV ショーはやっぱり締め切りが厳しいかな。締め切りが厳しいのと、まああくまで日本だけの場合だけどすごい お金の予算のね、違いがあるかな。
ああ、そうですね。それは時間の問題ですよね。
そう、でも映画も時間ないけどね。
そうです。To answer this question, he said that there isn't really that huge of a difference between filming tokusatsu series and movies, but um, uh, there is more of a time crunch for the TV shows to do them, and also there is significantly a smaller budget, for the TV shows. So that definitely is a crux for the TV shows, because obviously a lot of work has to be put in them, and it's hard to make those shows. So that is a common issue, and I'll ask this question too. I guess I'll ask just the general process of how in the Japanese film industry films are made. How tokusatsu film productions begin. I was asked this question. 小口さん、日本の映画の世界で特撮映画とか、どうやってプロダクションが始まるんですか？
やっぱり日本はね、よく OK？ 日本語で。
OK。
日本はやっぱり、すごいいっぱいキャラクターを持ってるでしょ、昔から。ゴジラ、ガメラ、ウルトラマン、モア。だから、なんだろうな。何にもないとこからいきなり、プロダクションが始まるよりも、例えば、シン・ゴジラもそうだけど、ゴジラが何年ぶりにやるとか、復活とか、やっぱりリバイバルとか、あとはリブートみたいなのは、簡単だよね。
はい、そうです。
だけど、新しいのは、ちょっと難しいけど、そういう意味で言うとね、マーベルも DC も昔から子供向けであったけど、やっぱり、今世界中で人気だから、やっぱあれはすごいなと思うね、やっぱり。
そうですよね。
でも日本はやっぱりね、アメリカと同じかそれ以上ぐらいのキャラクターがいるから、やっぱりそういうのは作りやすいと思うんだけどね。
はい。So basically, Japan has a lot of pop culture figures that have always existed since the beginning of the 20th century. There was obviously Godzilla, Ultraman, Gamera, Mothra, so on, and much like any Hollywood franchise, these studios want to think about reboots, sequels, when to do the next one. So it's fairly easy to get one of these films into production, but it might not be so easy to get, for example, an original tokusatsu film to be made, because a lot of these are, obviously famous IP that is guaranteed a fan base and has money. So that's sort of generally how these things go. I'm just going to pose this question. Wasn't able to work with the costume companies. 小西さん、コスチュームを作る会社と働いたことあるんですか？そして働いてるんだったら、どういう関係ですかね？
なんかさっきもレインボー造形っていう人がいたけど、僕はあくまでアンアシスタントオブディレクターだから、ここに書いてあるようなプレックスとかはあんまり、一緒に仕事はするけど、そこでは働いたことない。で、プレックスはデザインをやる会社ですね。デザインだけ。で、その後、いわゆるコスチュームを作る会社にお願いするんだけど、でもそういうのも全部僕が全部一緒にいてチェックしたり、なんだろう。you know Bandai?
はい。
biggest toy company. バンダイのおもちゃの図面ってわかる？設計図みたいなんだけど、それをそのままスーツにしたらかっこ悪いじゃん。
はい。なるほどね。
だからちゃんと人が入って、ちゃんとかっこいいプロポーションになるように、それちょっとずつ打ち合わせをしたり、 チェックしたりする。
So, Kogushi, as a assistant director, hasn't worked with companies like Plex. Obviously, he doesn't work with them because they're part of the Super Sentai production, but they are strictly a design company. So the costumes go elsewhere to be made, it seems, and they also have to deal as the production crew. They have to deal with Bandai, which is one of the bigger companies in Japan, making toys and all sorts of games and stuff like that, and they have to think about how they make the suits and how they're integrated. Because if you just take the dimensions of a toy and blow it up into a suit, it's not going to look good. So that's something that they have to think about during that process. Before I take some questions in the chat, did you guys have any questions in mind that you wanted to ask, or should I?
Yeah, no, if I may, I had a question in regards. So I know I can feel the passion that he has, growing up and through college to his career. I was wondering, if in his everyday work, does he get to, squeeze the creative juices into the production, or is his work really more regimented? He has to follow more of a structured guideline. Because I know sometimes when you are very passionate about your work, you want to have input into what you do. Is that not the case? I'm curious.
That's a good question. 小西さん、特撮プロダクションに入ってる時に、エドウィンが言ったのは、小西さんの特撮の愛とそのパッションがすごく見えてるので、そして、そのプロダクションに入ってる時に、自分の意見とか、アイディアとか言えるんですか？とか、もうちょっとこの、なんかストリクトな感じ？小西さんが、こう、スタッフの中でこう、どうやって言うんだろう。こう、なんか言えるんですか？自分のアイディアとか。
Thank you, Edwin. You said love and passion. Thank you. Yeah, I have a love and a passion for Tokusatsu. Okay. まあ僕も、まあね、入ってすぐは言えないけど、もう15年ぐらいやってるし、まあ、やっぱりこう気づいたところは言ってるし、もちろん別に何も言えないわけじゃないし、やっぱりそのアシスタントディレクターっていうのは、そのクリエイティブなとこでもディレクターをサポートしなきゃいけないのね。
はい。
ただのそのお手伝い、just only help じゃなくて、ちゃんとクリエイティブなとこもヘルプしなきゃいけないから、だからそういう意味ではいろいろ言ってるよ。それはもう安野さんにも言ってるよ。
はい。So as the assistant director, his job obviously is to help, the production, help the team, but also help the film. But as the assistant director, he has an obligation to share his creativity with the director and share his opinion with the director, because, he can't just stand there and not say anything if he thinks a shot is bad, or if he thinks something isn't going right. So there is that marriage between director and assistant director, and that sort of workflow. So he's able to sort of express his creative thoughts, and he mentioned that, of course, he even tells Anna what he thinks about certain things that he is doing, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. I know some productions, sometimes even though you have solid feelings in a huge structured society, you sometimes feel a little suppressed when you can't express opinions about how you think a shot would go. So that's awesome to hear, for sure.
エドウィンが言ったのは、この世界は、もちろん、これは映画にもそうなんですけど、やっぱり、意見が言えないんですよね。いろんなところで。 だからこの、リレーションシップがあるのがすごいいいって言ってます。このアシスタント、ディレクターとディレクターの、この、パートナーシップみたいに、それがすごいいいと思いいと思ってます。
まあ、ね、アメリカだとあんまりそういうね、こう気軽にカジュアルにディレクターに話しかけられないかもしれないね。大きい作品だと。
そうですよね。He's saying probably in America, the assistant director and the director probably don't have this kind of open relationship. That's more than likely true, I'm assuming. Like, I don't really see the AD talking to like Christopher Nolan, like, hey, like this doesn't look good or something.
I think the cinematographer in America kind of fills that creative role a bit more.
That's
The AD is
yeah.
more
I would
of a
agree,
music role. If you have anything, I mean, small
うん
production.
あの、アメリカではキャメラマンなんですよね。キャメラマンと監督が、二人の意見を言って、こうやって映画作るんですけど、ハリウッドでは、アシスタントディレクターと監督はそんなに喋んないと思います。
結構ね、日本のアシスタントディレクターがいっぱいいて、チーフ、セカンド、サード、フォースまでいて、結構大きい作品だと6人ぐらい、7人ぐらいいて、ほとんどが調べたり、リサーチをするのね、最初に。
はい。
脚本のためのリサーチとか、監督のためのリサーチとかして、で、現場に入ったら、ボールドやったり、現場回したり、アクターのお世話したり、まあ、いろんなことをやってんだよね。だから、多分アメリカからするとびっくりするぐらいいろんなことやってんのね。
So he was saying that in the Japanese film industry, correct me if I'm wrong, in Hollywood, how many ADs are there? It's usually like what, like 2?
Yeah, I mean it depends, but I think 2, and then
There's like
you
a
have
second AD and
Usually just 2, yeah.
second AD, and then you
As
have
like a
department
standard.
heads, like whoever's in charge of
So-
production or camera or whatever.
right. So he was saying that in a regular Japanese production, there's at least 4. There's a chief assistant director, second, third, fourth, and if it's a big production, it can be almost 7 ADs. So it's a very different world from how the American film industry kind of works. So there's a lot of input that's put into this kind of sphere, but obviously this depends on the director, how much of the input they want. But in particular, in Japan, there are a lot more ADs than in Hollywood.
I think Nadeem might have had a question, and then I don't know if Shaka's wanted if we want to throw it to the chat because I see there's a queue.
Yeah. So I was gonna touch briefly on the work with Ava, Thrice Upon a Time. I wanted to know, like, in your experience, what you would say was probably like the most difficult or challenging part of the production process, and how did you, as well as your team, overcome that challenge?
小西さん、新エヴァンゲリオンのプロダクションの中に、何が一番大きい、チャレンジだったんですか？と、どうやってスタッフがそのチャレンジを、やっと、完結したの？
僕はね、エヴァンゲリオンは全部やってないし、
はい。
ライブフィルムマテリアルクルーだったのね。
はい。
みんな見たのかな？見てるかな？大体見てるかな？
2人見た。2人見た。
ガラス割れるとこあったじゃん。
はい。あれは
うちで、ライブフィルムでちゃんと、うちで、ハイスピードで撮りました。
はい。
だけど、まあ、ちょっと、エヴァンゲリオンはちょっと他と違いすぎるから、あまり比べようがないんだけど、
そうですか。
そう、やっぱり、正解がないから、いろいろトライアンドエラーしながら、 まあいいの探っていく感じかな。
So in Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0, I don't know
Yeah.
if you or Michael remember, but there's that scene where the spear, the Gaia spear, enters the giant Ray's eye, and it kind of like shatters into glass.
Yes.
Yeah.
He shot that because that's real. That's real glass. It's not animated. That's real live action footage
Oh wow.
that was superimposed into the film.
I would not have guessed.
Yeah, I would never have known.
Yeah, there's a lot of practical effects that were implemented in Shin Eva, and basically in all of the practical effects that were in Shin Evangelion, he was part of the crew that filmed that at Toho Studios. So what he was mentioning was it wasn't as challenging as some of the other productions that he's done, because obviously it was a very small part of Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0, but there was a lot of trial and error that went into the process of like shattering the glass and making sure how things went. So probably not, I'm guessing not as challenging as his other works, but it was still something that he was, working on to see, how it could be done the best.
Yeah, I'm
Very
definitely
quick
gonna have to look up that scene
Yeah, please.
later tonight.
Just a very quick follow-up on that, and I know that there's a lot of chat questions, but was there a particular reason, either artistic or practical or budgetary, as to why that glass effect was done practically?
小口さん、その、新エヴァンゲリオンでそのガラスが割れるシーンとかと、新エヴァンゲリオンに他の特撮みたいなものがありますよね。ライブアクションの撮影の部分が。マイケルが聞いてるのは、その理由が何ですか？それは、このアーティスティックの理由か、これは、これは、プロダクションの理由か。
アーティスティックの理由は分かりません。
わかりま
I
す。
don't know. I don't know.
He doesn't.
Mm.
All right, fair enough.
But that sequence used motion capture.
Oh yes. There is the scene where Unit 1 and Unit 13 are fighting. That's of course motion capture.
Gotcha.
だけど、クリエイティブなありません。でもそ
But
こは
there,
ね、僕やってないんで、あとは火花取ったりとかしてたかな。
but there is no creative decision that he was told as to why it was made like that.
Maybe Anno knows, but
Yeah, I think that's Anno knows. それは安野さんだけ知ってるよね。多分。
そういうことです。そういうこと。
Yes, basically.
That's right.
Yeah. It's
do we want to throw to some of the chat questions, and then we'll kind of finish with some questions of our own?
Yes, I want to ask. I'll ask. Okay, this one right here. This is a very good question. 日本ではどうやって特撮のプロダクションがこう見るんですか？やっぱり最近の映画ってこう CG を使うから特撮のその面白いと思う人っているんですかね？日本では今。
ねえ。これはよく聞く質問だけど、How are Tokusatsu production considered in Japan nowadays? Still being out of my year, or it losing interest because of CGI. まあ、特撮の方がね、ミニチュアの方が早いって時もある。いまだに、日本はね。
そうですか。
CG にすると、まあ、いろいろ楽なとこもあるんだけど、結構時間がかかるのね。
はい。
だけど、意外にミニチュアだったらすぐ撮れたりとか、何回もできたりとか、
なるほど。
エラーした場合のリトライとか、フィックスが、こう、フィックスっていうか、なんていうの、ちょっとこう、もうちょっとこうしてみよう、ああしてみようが、その場ですぐできちゃう。だから、なんかこう、 なんだろう、CGI だと、こう、チェックして、リクエストが来て、で、またチェックしてエラーで、トライアンドエラー繰り返したけど、結構、特撮だとその、現場シューティング、フィルミングのとこでもう、そこでもう、答えを探す感じ。だからその分、そのなんか、ディレクターと、その実際にやる人、その、スペシャルエフェクトクルーが、こう、その、ちゃんとディスカッションして、その場で、なんか一番いいのを決める感じ。だし、なんかダメだったらすぐ、その現場で、ちょっとやり方変えてすぐできるし、そのその点早いよね。そういう
でもこれは
ライブアクションは。
はい。でもこれはこう、お客さんが見たいんですかね、特撮。
日本だけだと思うんだけど、日本は昔からゴジラがあってガメラがあるでしょ。
はい。
で、パワーレンジャーもあるでしょ。
はい。
だから、もうね、なんていうか、ミニチュアを気にしないんだよね、日本人が。あんまり。
あ、そうですか。
もう小さい時から結構その馴染みがあるから、馴染みってわかる？そのよく見てるから、
はい。
まあもしかしたら今小さい子はもうミニチュアわかんないかもしれないけど、まだまだ俺の年ぐらいでも小さい時はほら、平成エラーゴジラシリーズとかいっぱい見てたから、なんかその、ミニチュアって分かってて見てる。ちょっと難しいんだけどね、これ。
いや、わかります。to answer that question, basically, in Japan, Tokusatsu, this style of practical effects and miniatures, it's almost pretty much accepted. The Japanese public seem to be very comfortable with it, and they understand that it's miniatures, and they watch it as such. They are able to sort of take any notion of like it's fake away, because they've sort of become accustomed to it because it's been around for 60 plus years of Japanese film history. So it's become sort of a norm. So in Japan, it seems to be still something that people are comfortable with, but in the West, it's still sort of something that is for some diehard fans. And also, he was mentioning that in Japan, making miniatures and shooting miniatures is actually faster than making CGI models, he said, because in Japan they I only presume that their CG tech isn't the best because of money and time, a lot, but if it's a miniature set, you can shoot it as many times as you want, and there's a lack of like mistakes. You can just redo it however you need because it's just physically in front of you. So there's no need to like re-render a different area of a certain set or something. It's already just there in front of you. So for the Japanese film industry, making miniatures and shooting miniatures is actually oftentimes faster than doing CGI models. That's what he said.
Yeah, I mean that is kind of surprising. I would say. I mean, when I think of miniatures, I always think of one of the things where it may pull ahead of CG effects, or at least until the recent sort of advances, is how it works with destruction and physics. I mean, like Shin Godzilla is a perfect example of that. Of trying to make something that's being crushed or thrown all over the place can be more awkward if it's rendered through CG, depending on how the physics look. But when you're capturing it with miniatures, it looks a little bit more kind of robust and realistic. But I have to imagine like those setups take a long time. So I'm wondering, like, what is the longest amount of prep time it took to put together a shot in Shin Godzilla?
Yeah, and I like to reference that one shot with the I think Yoki, you're mentioning that the shot with it's like a building and like they had to like collapse it, and that dude almost got his finger cut off or something.
Oh yes.
Oh.
Yeah, there was an accident. Okay, so I'll get to those two questions. So 小西さん、シン・ゴジラの現場で一番長くかかったこのセットはどのくらいかかって作ったんですかね。
ああ、セットね。
一番長いやつ。
よく言うの
あれですか？
知らないどれか
あれ
な。
東京駅じゃないよね。
でも、一番バジェットかかってるのは東京駅かもしれないね。でも、撮影で一番時間かかったのは、あれじゃない？足が、山に刺さるとことかじゃない？
はいはいはい。そして山が崩れる。
そうそう。あれは、多分、アナザーフッテージをいろいろ重ねて撮ってるから。
あれ作ったのはどのくらいかかったんですかね。
途中まで作ったものを持ってきたから、でも、トータルすると、わかんない。いやー、どんぐらいかな。でも、1ヶ月ぐらいかな。
1ヶ月ぐらい。First, on Michael's question, there's a shot in Shin Godzilla where his foot sort of steps into sort of like a hill, and the hill kind of collapses in on itself. That shot, which I did witness them filming that setup, and it took 2 days to shoot just that shot. That set, and also, mind you, this was also a pre-built set. It took a month to make just that.
Wow.
Damn.
So a month to build and 2 days to destroy, essentially.
Yes, and for one shot.
For one shot.
Do you know how long the shot was? Was it like 5 seconds or
The shot must be like 4 seconds, maybe.
4 seconds?
Because it's basically, it's literally his foot like stepping down and the mountain is collapsing. It's that shot. So it might be 4 or 5 seconds. And the most expensive miniature to make, according to Kogushi-san, was the Tokyo Station set. At the end of the film, when Godzilla's getting that like coagulant that's like put in his body, and he's like in the Tokyo Station area, that they at first built a miniature of that building, but then in the final film it's CG. But originally they were going to shoot it on miniature, but they ended up using the miniature as a CG scan for the final film. And to get to Shaq's question, 小口さん、一回覚えてるんですけど、
はい。
これがあったんですよね。シン・ゴジラの最後の方に、ヤシオリ作戦の時に、ビルがこう、倒れますよね。そしてその中にカメラがあって、ミニチュアのデスクが、ガラスからわーっと出るよね。その時に、その機械を、こントロール人が事故がなったんですよね。
あ、そうだっけ？忘れちゃった。でも、あれがお金かかってるかもね。あれも、そう、スケールも大きいし、1/4スケール。
あれ、
1/4で伝わるんだっけ？ 1 per 4?
はい。It's that set is the scale is 1/4. That big scale. He doesn't remember the event, but that set did cost a lot of money to build that like contraption where they had to build an entire floor of a building and then tilt it on its side, and all the miniatures had to fall out the glass at the very end. But yeah, that's that question. I'm just going to ask this very quickly. Titan Goji said, 巨人兵のプロダクションに入ってたんですけど、その経験のことちょっと聞きたいんですね。
僕の名前があったってこと？
はい。
ありましたね。あったけどね、ちょっとしか手伝ってないよ、これは。
あ、そう。
だけど、ちょっとしか手伝ってないけど、あれはすごいよね。全部ミニチュアでやってるからね。
どこの部分やったんですか？
いや、ほとんど、実はほとんどやってないって、ごめんね。
いやいや、 全然大丈夫よ。
ちょっと手伝っただけなんだけど、いや、でもね、あれはすごいよね。やっぱり、あれとガメラ3がミニチュアで一番すごいんじゃないかな。
うん。そして、2つとも樋口真嗣ですからね。
そうですね、やっぱり。
So Davis, he said that he only helped out just a little bit on the film, so he wasn't like a core member of the Tokusatsu team in that specific project. So he doesn't have that many experiences working on it, but he does admire that film a lot, and he thinks that Giant God Warrior appears in Tokyo and Gamera 3 have the best tokusatsu effects in modern filmmaking, which I also very much agree with. Just this question. そのスーパー戦隊のプロダクションから始まったんですよね。小口さんが。だから、
そう。
その後にシン・ゴジラとシン・ウルトラマンに入って、スーパー戦隊の方は CG とかほとんど使ってないですよね。そして、
まあ少しだけだね。
少しだけ。そしてシン・ゴジラとシン・ウルトラマンは CG が多い部分ですよね。特撮プロダクションの中で。その違いは何ですか？スーパー戦隊からシン・ゴジラ、シン・ウルトラマンのこの違いが。
違いはね、やっぱり、まあ、パワーレンジャーはね、子供が見るものですから、
はい。
まあ、それでいいんですけど、やっぱり、でも今までもゴジラもウルトラマンも結構子供が見るものだったじゃないですか。
はい。
陽子大好きなゴジラ平成エラーシリーズ。
はい。
俺も好きだけど。
はい、
あれも子供向けの、冬の映画だったね、昔は。
はい、そうですよね。
だけど、やっぱり、シンがついてからは、大人向けな部分もあるわけですよ。シン・ゴジラもしてると。ってなると、ちょっとやっぱり、ミニチュアだと、全部ね、バトルフィールドが全部ミニチュアだとちょっと大変かなっていうのも、大変っていうか、撮影が大変というよりは、お客さんにはあんま向かないかなっていう感じがするし、だから、シン・ゴジラみたいに、とある一部ね、パート・オブ・シーンの、一部ミニチュアでやることが、まあ、映画では今、特撮はそういう感じになってるし、ね、クリストファー・ノーランだって、一部ミニチュア使ってるじゃん。
はい。
まあ、そういうところだね、やっぱり。子供向け。
Oop, I think he froze. But just to answer the question, to translate, he said that the other tokusatsu projects of the past, like Super Sentai and also the Heisei and Millennium era Godzilla films, they mostly use miniatures and focus on miniatures heavily on those productions. But those were pretty much mostly aimed for families and children. Especially Godzilla was a December release film, and they were marketing it towards that demographic. But once the Shin title appeared on Shin Godzilla, Shin Ultraman, and next Shin Kamen Rider, there was a shift in gear towards more of an adult audience, and they thought that using miniature sets might not be as, let's say, palatable for adult audiences to kind of like take seriously. So that transition was sort of a drastic change between the sort of like the creation of those big battlefields where it's all practical versus the CG sets that they made for Shin Godzilla, Shin Ultraman, which chose to use tokusatsu and practical effects only in specific moments in the film, as opposed to having it be the overall production. And he compared it to Christopher Nolan, for example, where Christopher Nolan will use practical effects mostly, but it is helped with visual effects and to sort of enhance the experience. So that transition was a different change of pace between the more not child-oriented but like family-oriented field for the Super Sentai and Heisei Godzilla films into Shin Godzilla, Shin Ultraman.
Yeah, I do have a question. I can wait till after the next chat one. Just kind of
Okay.
off the
I
last.
just want to ask very quickly. Attack on Titan was probably the last big Tokusatsu film production, especially for that kind of scale. Have you seen it? 樋口監督の進撃の巨人のスタッフに入ってたっけ？
これもね、ちょっとしか手伝ってないんだけど、ミニチュアクルーで手伝いました。
はい。He was only a part of Attack on Titan for a little bit, but he was part of the miniature staff production. 進撃の巨人を見ましたかって聞いてるんですね。
ああ、Have you seen it? だもんね。
はい。
見たよ。
見た。
もちろん見たよ。ちゃんと見たよ。
もちろんですよね。
もちろん。全部見てるよ、そういうのは。
はい。Yes, he's seen it. And of course, he has to see all of those kind of productions. Michael, I think you had a question.
Yeah, well, just you sort of mentioned Christopher Nolan there and making a broader point. I'm just wondering if there's anything that he feels, anything about the Japanese film industry that he wishes we'd see more of in Hollywood, and if there's anything in the Hollywood film industry he wishes that he'd see more in the Japanese film industry. Just
That's a good
if we could trade an aspect,
right.
マ
イケルが聞いてるのは、ハリウッドで、日本の映画プロダクションのこの部分がこうどうやって言うんだろう。やっぱり日本の映画プロダクションとハリウッドのプロダクションってすごい違いますよね。そしてこのハリウッドが日本の映画プロダクションから習える部分があるんですか？そしてそして日本もハリウッドから習えることがあるんですかね？
多分 maybe Hollywood production learn from Japanese production なんだろうね。むしろ陽子まあ日本のプロダクションは、ハリウッドのプロダクションからちゃんと学ぶべきことは多分労働環境だと思います。Working environment。で、逆に俺はハリウッドのこと知らないけど、なんか問題があるのかな、そのハリウッド、そっちアメリカでも
まあ問題いっぱいあるまああるんですけど、クリエイティブの問題もあるし、まあこの社会がこうハリウッドのこう世界があるんですから、こう日本から日本の映画のプロダクションから取る部分がある、あったらなんだろうね。日本のプロダクションから取るっていうと、逆に日本は今撮影がねちょっとしづらいからね、狭いから、やっぱアメリカに比べるとね許可も下りないかもしれないし、だから多分日本じゃファースト&フューリアスみたいなの撮れないよ。撮れないよ。What he was saying is what, at least on the Japanese side, what Japan can learn from Hollywood is work environment. Obviously, the Japanese film industry is pretty infamous for having some not so great filming environments. Both of us have experienced pretty long hours, and I didn't work weekends on Shin Godzilla, so there's that, and there are no unions in the film industry over there. So he was saying that the Japanese film industry can learn from Hollywood on that aspect. And he was saying that like the current state of Japanese filmmaking now, it's hard to say what Hollywood can learn because he was I'm using Fast and Furious as an example. Japan can't make Fast and Furious because of its scale, its size, like the blockbuster nature of Fast and Furious film. Japan can't make that, he was saying. So as of right now, it's hard to say what Japan can offer Hollywood in terms of like production side or innovation at the moment, at the very least.
Or even like artistically, maybe. I mean, not to hammer the point.
クリエイティブのサイドはどう？日本の映画から習える部分があるんですか、ハリウッドが。
多分それはあると思う。やっぱり
それは、
まあなんていうのかな、すごいビッグバジェットの映画が少ないけど、やっぱり技術よりはクリエイティブな人は多いかもしれないね、日本は。もしかしたら。
なるほど。
やっぱりキャラクターもそうだし、サブカルチャーがやっぱりいっぱいあるから、そういう意味では映画に関わらずクリエイターが多いかもしれないね。アニメにしても漫画にしても映画にしてもあとゲームもね、ゲームにしても、やっぱりそういう映画じゃないサブカルチャーでクリエイター多いから、まあそういう意味では、日本のクリエイターをちゃんとハリウッドの大きなバジェットでなんかやらせるのが一番いいんじゃないの？
そうですよね。He said that in Japan, there might be more sort of, let's say, creators or like non-business people on a set, for example, like more people speaking and creating these characters in the industry as opposed to Hollywood, where it feels more like producer heavy. So it feels a bit more organic when these creators are making, these characters. And what he was saying is that actually also outside of the movies, there's, of course it's anime, but also video games have a lot of creative minds as opposed to kind of like the business producer minds that are integral into the production. And he was also saying that Hollywood can learn from the creators by helping these creators get a budget in Hollywood and actually make a project with a big budget in the States. That's something I'd like to do with a certain property that I won't name. いつか日本のキャラクター僕もやりたいですよ、アメリカで小口さんと一緒に。
ようやった方がいいよ。
もちろんやります。
みんなでやればいいじゃないですか。みんなで。
He's saying that all of us can work together to bring a Japanese property in the States. Well,
hell yeah.
On that note,
I think Shaq's got a question.
Yeah.
Would we ever see you in the director's chair, seeing as you were, making films in college and you were like, putting forth and that got you like into your career now? Would we ever see you in like future, like, in Ano's seat or like, in Shinji's seat, like to see you in the director's chair and actually produce your own property?
シャークが聞いてるのはいつか小口さんがもう本当にフルタイムの監督なる姿が見たいんですね。自分の監督の椅子を持ってる日が見たくて、それはこの未来にあるんですか？アシスタントディレクターとか特撮じゃなくてもう普通の監督。
慣れたらいいねっていう。いつ慣れるかな。はい。
He wishes he wants to. He's wondering when. um.
Well, we'll keep an eye out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He actually did. Shin ウルトラファイトをやったんですよね。監督。
ああ、知ってる？誰が言った今。
僕。
あ
彼らは知らないけど、言った方がいいと思って。
そう、それはただ今、つぶらやプロダクションのサブスクライブのサイトでしか見れないね。でも、もう今やってるよ。
So he was a director of an episode of a web series that's for Tsuburaya Productions streaming page. It's called Shin Ultrafight, which is a branch of Ultraman, and one of the episodes he directed, and it's using characters from Shin Ultraman, and he was in the director's chair for that. So that was a recent project that he did as a director. Just as a it's loud. Just as a heads up, we are reaching the 1 hour mark. Did we have any like questions that you guys really wanted to ask to sort of like individually wrap this up? And I'll just mention that to him first. 小西さん、今、1時間ぐらい、なったので、この4人から、最後の質問を聞きたいですね。そして、一回これを聞きたいんですけど、これ日本語で書いてるから、自分が読めなくて。
これは何これ？アメリカで二次特撮プロデュースしてます。これは、なんだろう、オートマティックトランスレートしたのかな？ Google トランスレートかな？アメリカでインディーズをプロデュースしてる。キツネを起用する？フォックスか。
そうだと思います。
キツネって、フォックスって 20th Century Fox？
いや、違いますよね。
そうだよね。2017年ってなんだろう。多分、トランスレートはわかんないけど、私はマイナー存在です。何かご提案があるでしょうか。キツネなんていたっけ？まあでも、この仮面ライダーのキャラクターは毎年、ね、バンダイが東映が決めますから、キャラクターはね。それはもう毎年違うから、それはもう僕らが決めてることじゃないから、決まったものを淡々と取るしかないんだけど。
Oh, I see. He wrote it in English. I've been producing my own tokusatsu show independently in the US since 2017. Now Kamen Rider is using a very similar theme, Kitsune, as a minor player. What is your suggestion? Basically, he was saying that, Kamen Rider over the years has been using some new characters and some new players, but これが本当の質問だったんですけど、今彼が特撮番組を自分でやってるって書いたんですけど、なんかアドバイスとかありますか？
この赤いキャラクターがレッドフォックスね。
多分そうです。はい。
わかった。はい。アドバイス何にもないね。彼が僕は何歳か知らないですけど、僕がその学生の時撮ったみたいに、まずは見よう見まねで大丈夫です。要は、
はい、
ミミックで大丈夫です。
はい、
で、ちょっとずつ自分のやりたいことをやってってオリジナリティを出していけばいいと思います。
はい。He said that in the very beginning, it's good to sort of copy or mimic a certain style, and obviously this character is similar to Kamen Rider, but it's different. But he was saying that it's good to start off that way, where you kind of have the obvious inspiration in front of you, but then as you go on, start to put in your own individual flavor into the property. That way it can sort of grow into its own thing. So start off with the inspiration, just go heavy into it, but then start putting in your own voice and making it your own as you go. And yeah, best of luck to you, because that seems like a lot. So and we're all filmmakers here, and we know the stress of making something like this. So good luck to you on that. Like that's honestly, that's super cool. So hats off to you, the Morton Red Fox. That's really cool. And yes, so just to go around the round table here, do you guys have any final questions that you want to ask him? I'll just go clockwork. I'll start with Michael Evans.
Oh man, I have asked so many questions already. I feel like we need to give the other guys a chance.
All right, Shaq. Let's go, Shaq.
If
You're
I may
muted.
ask that, I have one I was going to go for.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to Shin Godzilla. What's your personal like favorite part of the movie, or like maybe your favorite shot or your favorite scene?
これがラップアップなんですけど、彼の最後の質問は、シン・ゴジラの一番好きなパートは、まあ、好きなパートというか、好きなシーンは何ですか？はい。
なかなか難しいね。全部好きだけどね。
そうですよね。
でも、陽光と一緒に SFX デパートメントで撮った、本物の車にトンネルから水が落ちてくる。
はいはいはいはい。
You experience?
はいはい。
あれがね、なんか楽しかった。自分でなんかウィンドワイパーみたいなのをこう俺がスイッチングしたんだけど、で、俺と、よく言うの、慶三さん、and me inside the car。
はい。
で、camera rolling, then I say to director, camera rolling to open the window. Then cameraman is shouting, close the window. After mud water drop front window of car.
So he said that it's hard to pick a favorite scene in Shin Godzilla, but one of his favorite, at least, moments from filming the movie was, do you remember in the beginning of Shin Godzilla, there's before any kaiju pops up, there's a scene where the car is going into the tunnel and like blood is like coming like down from the ceiling of the tunnel. He said that was one of his favorite things to film, because he was in the car that was in the shot, and he was like controlling like the window wipers and everything, and like the cameraman and him were like trying to figure out how to shoot it, and I was also there with him when that shot was set up and everything. So that was a particularly fun setup to shoot. Did you have any other questions, Dean?
No.
Okay.
I kind of had a question, just like in moving forward in the future, looking forward into the future. I mean, I know he said he wanted to, potentially immigrate with his family, move to somewhere else. Did he want to take his experience with Tokusatsu and kind of spread its influence, to the new location he's moving to, or did he want to like try to explore some new methods, kind of mix of both, hybrid a little bit? Curious if he's thought a little bit more about the future of Tokusatsu and his work career.
Yes. 小口さん、最初に小口さんが言ったんですけど、海外に行きたいんですよね、小口さんが。その海外に行くときに、その自分の特撮の経験をその他の国に持っていくつもりですか？
それはちょっと今わかんないね。その海外のミニチュアの事情がわかんない。今何にもないかもしれないから。
そうですよね。
そう。日本だけかもしれないから。それはその経験が生きるかどうかはわかんないし、でも、日本で、まあ、できることは全部やるけど、まあ、そうだね。なんかもうね、その特撮の経験というよりは、その、なんかこう VFX も含めた経験なんだよね、今。特撮って。だから、まあね、ヨコもシン・ゴジラから知ってるけど、その、マテリアルフッテージとかさ、撮ってるじゃん。グリーンスクリーン、ブルースクリーン、ファイアフッテージ、ウォーターフッテージ、いろいろ撮ったでしょ、ヨコ。やっぱ、ああいうのの経験と、その知識が、まあ、どこ行っても大丈夫なようにしないといけないね。あんまり決め込まずに、決めないで。
So he was saying that it's a bit hard to answer the question because he is unsure of the state of miniature works overseas, elsewhere outside of Japan. Because he was, we had conversations about this in private, but he was searching for a lot of special effects companies outside of Japan, but he only found visual effects companies. It seems that a lot of special effects companies are not doing very well in this current modern age, so he's a bit unsure of the state of practical effects in if and when he chooses to emigrate. He's a bit unsure of the state of where things may be, so it's a bit hard to answer the question. But he does have Tokusatsu now, and what he has experienced is also Tokusatsu has evolved into a new stage where it's practical mixed with visual effects. And Shin Godzilla is a great example of that, where it's a lot of CG but also a lot of practical effects married together to make this film. So he is able to, what he was saying was that he was able to bring that experience of having both worlds elsewhere, wherever he can emigrate to, if and when he chooses to do so. But it is a bit of a weird state that we're in when it comes to miniature effects. There aren't a lot of companies that are doing it, and not a lot of films that are using it. Obviously, people like Denis Villeneuve and Christopher Nolan are using stuff like that, but it doesn't seem to be as prevalent as it used to be. But that was a great question, Edwin. Thank you. Did you have any other follow-up questions, Edwin?
No, that was good. I'm wishing him best of luck. I know there's always going to be an appreciation, for practical effects. So hopefully there's a revival, and of course there's always going to be an audience ready to receive that art form.
Shaq, did you have any questions? You're muted.
No, not really. I'm good.
Okay. Michael?
I do. I don't know if it's a great question to end on, because I'm not sure if there's a good answer, but we were talking before the stream started about ILM, and kind of in the general context of special effects versus practical effects. I'm wondering how he feels about the new volume technology, because I know you're a huge fan of it, if it feels like it's something that could be complementary with practical effects, or if it's more of a displacement kind of force.
マイケルが聞いてるのは、今、スター・ウォーズの使ってる、LED の、画面がありますよね。そのテクノロジーの、はどう思うんですか？それは特撮にいいか悪いか、それを小口さんが。
もう、スーパー戦隊でね、使ってます。その LED を。
もう使ってるんですか？
で、
They're already using it.
で、なんだろう、ちゃんとただ映してるだけじゃなくて、カメラの、レンズとちゃんと連動して、カメラとコネクティングして、ズームかけたら、ちゃんと後ろがボケるとか、カメラ振ったら、LED の方もちゃんとちょっとずれるとか、ちゃんとね、できてます。で、それをやるスタジオもね、今、それだけのスタジオもね、Netflix がね、東宝に作ったみたい。
はい。
あるみたいですよ。で、まあ、 特撮的にはどうだろうね。まあ、そうなんだよね。俺ね、その LED よりもね、特撮的に一番すごいなと思うのはやっぱドローンなんだよね。
あ、そうですか。
今までだったらどっかのルーフトップから撮影してたでしょ？
はい。
街のランドスケープとかはね。
はい。
だけど、ドローンってどこでも飛べるじゃん。
はい。
そうするともうミニチュア撮ってるのと同じなんだよね。
ああ、はい。なるほどですね。はい。
とある高さから好きなだけ撮れるから、
はい。
もうドローンはね、なんかミニチュア撮ってるみたいになっちゃうんだよ。
あ、じゃあその方がもっと特撮にいいと思って。
いいか悪いか分かんないけど、
はい。
すごいドローンがね、出てきて特撮っぽいなと思いました。
So, basically, also, シャークが、仕事に行ったんですから、bye. Shaq, thank you for coming. He had to go to work. But what he was saying was, they actually use the volume already in, well, not to that scale, obviously, but they do use the volume for Power Rangers in Japan now, it seems. And he doesn't know whether it helps Tokusatsu or not, but it does add a level of dimension to it that seems that they seem to, be moving forward with. But what he was suggesting, which I didn't even consider, was that drone technology is actually might potentially be better for Tokusatsu, because how when you're shooting on a drone and you're shooting up, high on top of buildings, it already looks like a miniature set. So if you fly drones through a miniature set, it can give that effect of flying through a city, which I didn't even consider. That's actually very, very intriguing. Yeah, that was your answer.
Drones, yeah, I hadn't even thought of that, but yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that either. 小口さん、最後に僕たちに何か質問がありますか？
これからもしくは今映画撮ってるんですか？それはいつ見れますか？皆さんはあれなんだっけ、ごめんプロダクションの名前なんだっけ？
レジスタンス
ピクチャーズは、
はい、
この後の目標は何ですか？大きな目標は何ですか？
それちょっと聞きます。So I asked him if he had any questions for us, and he was asking, all of us at Resistance Pictures, and I can answer in Japanese at the very end, but I'd love to hear you guys. He was asking, we're shooting movies as a team, and we're trying to do as much creative work as we can with Resistance. What is the future looking like for us, and what is the process of what we're doing right now? And do we have any films coming up? Which we can answer that very easily as well.
Yeah, I mean, we have a film that's in post-production now that we're really excited about that has some special effects sort of laced through. And we've done some work with special effects, a little bit with practical effects. And I think for us at our budget level and just where we are in terms of our headspace, it's so much more gratifying to see those things on set than to kind of hedge your bets and hope that they're going to come through in post. Not only for the actors, like being able to interact with something physical, but just to see if what you've written down on the page or what you're directing is actually going to come off. So I think that's sort of where we are, at least in terms of that aspect of filmmaking.
It's a main focus on practical effects as of right now, at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, I think we do both, but I think it's more gratifying to be able to see the film both in production and in post-production, where how it's going to look.
Yeah, because it's easy to say fix it in post, but to actually have it done properly and just the way you want it, I think still got a couple of maybe months, maybe years before we see the true effects of the full capacity of what we can do. So I agree with you. I think practical effect for now has been a strong point for us.
Yeah.
And just to ask his like follow-up question in terms of like what are our future plans in terms of like the filmmaking process as of right now, like as a group in New York City, like what are the goals that we're trying to, or not goals, but like what are the steps that we are taking currently to achieve the ultimate goal?
Well, I think you can answer this too, but we have the feature that is in post-production. We're trying to work on a couple of short films, and I think ultimately what we want to do with this material is put it in front of somebody who can kind of get us to the next step on the ladder in terms of budget, so that we can actualize bigger ideas, with higher fidelity and more of a visual look, and be able to do the things that we want to do, but we can't because of restrictions.
Right.
Exactly. We're very used to self financing all of our projects, and we're getting to that point now where we realize that if we really want the story to be told in the best possible way, like we have to get an investor, we have to get like a studio, to kind of back us. So the feature film projects that are currently in post production, as Michael mentioned, are sort of like going towards that next step of like being able to pitch to investors, as well as being able to put our content into more festivals.
Yeah, festival runs also.
Okay. And I will echo your sentiments as I sort of answer and translate that question. 今やってることは、今2つ映画編集の今僕編集やってるんですけど、まだ結構時間がかかるので、今集中してるのはプロデューサーを探してるんですけど、プロデューサーかインベスターかもうスタジオも自分の作品をどうやって売るの考え方考えてるんですけど、そして今僕たちのビジュアルエフェクスはちょっと経験があるんですね、僕たちは。そしてその経験をもうちょっともっと頑張んなきゃダメなんですね。そんなに使ってないので、ビジュアルエフェクス。そして、今の状況ではちょっと、スペシャルエフェクスの方が、こう、やっぱり、実際に現場に見れて、実際に、こう、映画が、見えるんですね。その方が僕たちが、もっと、こう、丁寧に、作品を、作れるんですけど、だから、今のフォーカスは、スペシャルエフェクスやるんだったら、やっぱりもう、本当に現場で、やりたい、もんなんですけど、そして、もう、こっから未来はやっぱりこの2つの映画を、いろんなフィルムフェスティバルに、アプライして、その反応を見たいですね。そして、誰かその映画を買って上映する。それが目的ですね。
Okay, thank you, guys. Please ask me to help your production if I can. SFX or VFX, both okay.
Yeah, heck yeah. We've actually kind of been kind of like scouring around lightly for like new people who work within special effects and VFX, since that's like a department that we just don't really have that much experience and know-how in. So yeah, definitely let's stay connected, and if you have any particular people that maybe are looking for work that you can recommend, we'd be happy to chat with them.
Any advice and expertise we can get from somebody with as much experience as you have would be really appreciated. So
actually, that would be my final question. Actually, I'll ask that question.
Oh, sure.
これが最後の質問なんですけど、マイケルが僕たちにアドバイスとかありますか？
もう、I advise you, so try anytime and fixed. Try and fix. You must much more time. And そうね。でもやったことない特にこの映画の世界はやったことない人と映画作ってみるとか、やったことない撮影方法をやってみて、ちょっとずつやって、やっぱり経験を増やしていくのがいいと思うんで、やっぱり今ほらちっちゃいカメラでもさ、Amazon とかでこうスライダーとか売ってるんですよね。iPhone でコントロールできる。そういうのも含めて、もういろんなものにね、お金かかるけど、いろんなものに手を出した方がいいと思います。今はね。だけど、本当に今言ったように、SFX とかでなんか聞きたいことがあれば、我々じゃねえや。僕はいろいろ、ヘルプしますから。はい。はい。頑張って。
He said that the best thing that we can do is actually try as many things as we can and learn little bits of those experiences and stretch those experiences further. So trying out as many things as possible and putting our hands on as many different techniques and as much equipment as possible. He was mentioning they have like dollies that are controlled by iPhones that are on sale on Amazon, for example. So like it does cost money, but he did say that the best possible thing for us to do, and this is to all filmmakers who are watching, is to try as many things as humanly possible and to have as much of a wide net of experiences in the film like world, and that would be the best thing that we could do. And I think that's something that all of us will take to heart. And at the end, he did say, of course, if we need any special effects help, he will be willing to, of course, help us out on that. So we thank him for that.
Yes. Thank you. That would be incredible.
はい、これで1時間半なってるから、これで多分終わりなので、最後に言いたいことはありますか？ This is final words.
I will go to the America sometime.
Please.
Sometimes? Yeah. No. Anytime. Please let us meet together.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
yeah,
of course.
Definitely.
And maybe we can go to Japan one day. もしかしたら日本に行けるかもしれない。このクルーと一緒に。
Okay. Welcome.
Yeah, he'll be waiting for us. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining the stream. I really appreciate all of you guys for coming in. Titan Goji, Red Fox, and Henshin John, all of you guys, thank you so much for coming in and asking questions. And we were so happy that Kongi-san was here to join us. どうもありがとうございます、Kongi-san. Thank you so much. And yeah, this has been Resistance Pictures. We hosted this, and you can check out our work on our YouTube channel. That's linked onto this one. It's not this channel; it's on the other one, but on the homepage it's there. And Kogushi's work, you can find his work pretty much anywhere. He's worked on Shin Godzilla. He's worked on Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0, Thrice Upon a Time. Currently, Shin Ultraman is in Japanese theaters, and it's coming to U.S. theaters soon. Actually, Michael and Nadim and I will be watching it this Saturday. 小西さん、今回の月火水木金土曜日にマイケルと、ナディームと僕が新ウルトラマンを劇場で見ます、ね。
あとなんか モントリオールでも上映するって言ってたよ。
そう
映画祭、カナダ。
そうそしてニューヨークのスクリーニングで樋口監督が来る
本当
から、樋口監督にも
会ってくれば。
会えます、
うん、
会ってくれば、まあ、
大丈夫。
時間があったら。
よく大丈夫。You are same name.
そうか、そう。And you guys will get to meet Shinji Higuchi on Saturday. Well, hopefully. So that will be a big thing. And please look forward to Kogushi's work in Shin Kamen Rider that's coming next year in Japan. Hopefully, it'll get a wide release in the States. This is my mom.
Hello.
Hi, Miko.
お母さんです。
ああ、お母さん。
So yeah, thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it. And again, thank you to our guest, Kongi-san, for joining us. And we bid you good night. Thank you guys.
Night, everyone.
Bye.
Peace out.
You.